Hello, my name is Philip Totaro. I'm the founder and CEO of market research firm IntelStor. Welcome to your weekly dose of truth to power. Truth to Power examines data driven insights for the energy sector with a focus on renewables. On this week's episode, we're looking at capacity additions and market share in the Americas region from the IntelStor Future of Renewables report. Growth of renewable energy in the Americas may be stymied a bit over the next few years given the pullback in the USA, but Canada and Brazil have opportunities to step up and lead the region to a new frontier. With an abundance of sun as well as numerous lakes and flowing rivers, the emerging opportunities for growth in renewable energy adoption in the Americas is tremendous. While the region is still majority dependent on fossil fuels, 2025 ended with renewables at about 47%, with non renewable sources at 53% in terms of capacity installed. Renewable power generation sources should become the majority of the installed capacity by 2030 in the Americas region. The growth really has been exceptional, with a 74.3% share for non renewable sources of power generation in the Americas compared to renewables at 25.7% at the beginning of the century. While this largely mirrors the rest of the world, several geopolitical factors would appear to be slowing the rate of change for renewables adoption. Expected cuts in capacity additions in the USA, plus a lengthening of the timeline for offshore wind capacity deployment in the USA as well as Brazil, are at the top of the list. Both markets were expected to be major global growth drivers, but are being held back by, in the case of the United States, political ineptitude, and in Brazil, the lack of a policy framework as well as the mechanisms for offshore wind power offtake agreements. Nevertheless, the U.S. dominates the region with more than 478.5 gigawatts installed, with solar PV now outpacing onshore wind and both outpacing hydropower. Outside of the largest industrialized countries of the USA, Brazil, Canada, and Mexico, other countries are making some headway with renewable capacity additions, but they lack the transmission infrastructure and the right capital market structure for gaining significant traction. Solar PV in Central and South America has the largest growth potential, and many countries are moving forward with capacity auctions that are specifically dedicated to renewable power generation sources. But hydropower still leads the region with a 37.4% market share, followed closely by solar PV at 30% at the end of 2025. Solar PV will overtake hydropower in market share in the Americas in 2026 as wind energy also continues to grow. Wind energy ended 2025 at 24.1% market share in the Americas, but is also poised to at least match or possibly overtake hydropower by 2030 if expected non US capacity additions continue to thrive. While hydrogen was a popular technology in the previous hype cycle, most countries have found that without a meaningful need for the industrial gas applications, leveraging hydrogen for power generation is not particularly capital efficient, nor is it a particularly technically efficient means for hydrogen storage or any form of energy storage. Solid biofuels, in the meantime, will continue to represent a modest share of the renewable power generation mix in the Americas, and other technologies like geothermal will see modest but noteworthy spikes. As with the rest of the world, back in the year 2000, hydropower was the dominant form of renewable power generation with over 92.3% market share, followed by solid biofuels at 3.7%, geothermal at 1.4%, and onshore wind by 0.9%. By 2025, that's evolved to see hydropower reduced to 37.3% as solar PV and onshore wind continue their growth trajectory and take share away from hydropower. By 2030, we anticipate that solar PV should be the dominant renewable power generation source at more than 35.6%, with hydropower reduced to about 29% and onshore wind at about 23%, although again, Depending on whether or not capacity additions exceed expectations, onshore wind may have an opportunity to overtake hydropower. Growth in solid biofuels as well as chemical heat and hydrogen should stagnate at that point. Offshore wind will really be the next breakout renewable power generation technology within the region, despite the hurdles that have been put in place for it in the USA because of the political obstacles. But they should enjoy a market share close to 3% by 2030, something that should have been a lot higher by now if the government could get out of the way and allow companies to build their projects. Annual capacity additions will be led by solar PV with between 27 and 35 gigawatts annually for the next 5 years. Onshore wind will comprise the largest tranche of capacity additions with between 8 to 17 gigawatts annually, spurred on by the end of subsidies in the USA, as well as growth in other markets such as Canada, Mexico, Chile, Argentina, and Brazil. Meanwhile, Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador are also pursuing more renewables led by wind as well as solar PV. Offshore wind will see some growth by 2030, but not as much in the USA, obviously, that we expected. The market's been left reeling from political instability and gross mismanagement that's led investors and project developers to flee for Canada, Brazil, and Colombia to investigate the viability of cultivating the market there, in addition to a capital reallocation that was intended for the United States to countries in Europe, such as the UK and Poland and Germany. Renewable power generation started this century with 294.7 gigawatts of installed capacity, dominated by hydropower. By the end of 2025, the Americas region ends the first quarter of the century with just under 1 terawatt of installed capacity, thanks to the rapid deployment of solar PV as well as onshore wind in the region. We can project that by 2030, there should be almost 1.3 terawatts of capacity installed. Total capacity additions grew by 236.4% from the year 2000 through 2025. We expect another 22.7% growth in the next 5 years, with solar PV achieving 460 gigawatts installed region-wide, hydropower maintaining 377 gigawatts, and onshore wind achieving at least 306 gigawatts. While geothermal is poised to see a bit of a growth spurt in the USA in the coming years, in the wake of incentives being pulled for wind and solar in the USA, we do not expect this technology to become anything more than just a novelty, unfortunately. The promise of growth in renewable energy really centers on how fast we can get solar PV, onshore wind, and now offshore wind off the ground or in the water. Thank you for joining me this week. I'm Philip Totaro, and this has been your weekly dose of truth to power. We'll have more to come from this IntelStor exclusive report, The Future of Renewables, next time on Truth to Power. In the meantime, follow us on IntelStor's YouTube channel as well as your favorite audio platforms, and visit www.intelstor.com to join more than 250,000 subscribers to our renewable energy data solutions. We're adding subscribers faster than ever, so don't miss out. Register today. A full analysis of global renewable energy markets is available to online subscribers of this new exclusive IntelStor report, The Future of Renewables. And you can register today for the next Wind Summit event in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Visit www.windsummit.org and join hundreds of your industry colleagues to discuss all the latest trends in O&M. We hope to see you there.